Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Brothers Take podcast. I am Chris. I am joined once again by my brothers, Adam.
As opposed to.
As opposed to your brothers. Get your own fucking brothers. Start your own fucking podcast. The brothers.
No, don't. We don't need competition.
Yeah, no. A competition is good.
We will acquire you.
We will acquire.
We will spend $68 billion on you.
Yeah, you could set up the brothers shake in brackets up. You're shaking things up.
Stop giving them ideas.
Shut the fuck. Well, okay. So Adam is joining me.
Hello.
There you go. And Eric is joining me.
Stop.
My Eric, not your Eric. We are back in the room to talk more video games. And in this week's episode, we are going to be talking about a game that we are all playing. We are all at various different stages of playing. And that is Final Fantasy XVI. So if you're someone who has been playing it and you just want to hear what are other people making of this game, but I want to hear what other people think about it, but I don't want it spoiled, right? Then you're in the right place, because maybe you're like, I'm too worried to listen to someone else's discussion in case they're ahead of me. Don't worry, we're not talking spoilers. The only part that we will be allowed to spoil in this, because we are going to check in with Adam first, because me and Eric did a first impressions after the demo, and we talked spoilers of what was in the demo. So the first 2 hours of the game, which are like free to play for everyone, and they wanted people to play that, and it was like, get in, play this game, and hopefully you'll get hooked into the story. That part we're allowed to freely talk about, and we're going to get Adam's thoughts on that part first, right? Because there was kind of an interesting experience of playing that and then deciding to buy the game. So we'll talk about that, but anything else we will not spoil. It'll be just general things like, what do we think of the gameplay? What do we think about the story without getting into specifics and that kind of thing. If you're watching YouTube, we would love you to join in on the conversation by jumping down into the comments down below to share your own takes. And if you enjoy this discussion, why not give us a thumbs up, hit subscribe, ring that notification bell for all future content, including when maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of us will eventually do an actual spoiler talk on this game. But that could, it's a long game. It's a big ass game. To those of you who are listening to us on audio platforms, you can also join in on the discussion by getting in touch on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Brothers Take, again, to give your take so far on Final Fantasy XVI. It has taken a bold new direction for the Final Fantasy series. Is this the direction you want Final Fantasy to go in? We're going to discuss that and more. But without further ado, let's kick off the music! You know what's cool about the end of our intro in the video version?
Ifrit?
Ifrit! Hey. So, cool? or Ifrit, depending on, that's pretty cool. Satan's pretty cool. Adam, I'm gonna come to you first and basically ask you what me and Eric discussed in an episode. First of all, what were your thoughts about Final Fantasy XVI before playing the demo?
I wasn't mad on any of the presentation that we've seen. Because there was that, was it like 30 minutes or something? It could have been longer, actually.
It's a state of play, right? For like a good 25 minutes, 30 minutes maybe. Yeah.
And although I liked how it was presented, I didn't necessarily like what they were showing. So it just didn't grip me at all. Which is why I wasn't eager to download the demo. So what had me install it was seeing the Metascore and IGN's rating and just various high praise that I saw across the industry. So I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a go. So
right. Because it's like, right, it's a free demo. Why not? Download it. What's the worst
long
thing can
demo.
happen?
That's a long demo.
It's a good demo, right? In terms of, whatever about people can think what they want about the content, right?
Yeah.
But what I mean is in terms of actually allowing someone a sample of a game Like, because there's the first 2 hours of the actual game,
Mhm.
and then there's another part that you can play that's like a good half hour long. And that on its own would be a more typical demo.
Yeah.
It could have been just that, but it was the two of them. And I thought it was clever. One of them was designed to try and hook you into the story, right? Which is obviously the main driving force of this game. And the other one was to go, but this is what the combat will be like. Because obviously in the early hours, the combat is not like that.
Yeah.
So I thought as a demo, it was a good demo. What did you think of the demo, Adam? And just in case anyone, because it's going to be an overall spoiler-free discussion, but we did say the demo aspect, the first 2 hours of the game, we can talk spoilers. So
Yeah, the cutscenes are really, really good in it. I think what really stood out to me the most was the maturity in the voice acting. All right, this is coming off of 15. Now, 7 remake I thought was pretty good, but there's still some aspects. Like, I think Barrett, for example, I'm not overly... Like, he's okay. I'm not overly in love with Barrett. It's more to do with, like, not the voice actor himself, but just what he's made to say, I guess, or his direction. So this is a very, very mature Final Fantasy in that aspect, the voice acting aspect. So that was a big shock. Some of the cutscenes, like the battle sequence at the beginning of that demo, that was like, fucking Zack Snyder's Justice League level awesome. Like, that was really, really cool, the way that was done. And the moment you saw, I think it was something when Shiva was doing her fight, and you're running around, you don't really see, like, it happening, but you can see the aftermath of it, and it's like, that's fucking cool. The way the landscape is changing based on these two fucking titans, essentially. So I really, really like that aspect of it. Some of my annoyances with the demo was I felt like it was like, is that actually the beginning of the game? Like, is that where the game starts? Right.
That's where the game starts. Yeah.
It felt choppy. It felt like there was a scene purposely cut out here just for the demo. So I felt like I was missing stuff. And there's certain scenes which I think, and that's true of the game too, where they overstay their welcome, and you kind of just want to just get on with it and play the game. So the gameplay aspect of it is few and far between. It's a lot of sitting down and watching.
Yeah. Hello, PS2. We are back.
Yeah, it is.
We are back. This is a PS2 game made for the PlayStation 5. I'm not necessarily saying that as a bad thing. Take that how you will. But that is my take on this game so far. It is a PS2 game with PS5's kind of capabilities, I guess. Like graphics that PS2 could not do. And maybe areas and things that... And cutscenes that PS2 could not do. Some of them are really, like, wow. Incredible. But... in its game design, it's a PS2 game. You play a little bit, you put the controller down, you watch a cutscene. It's been a while. We haven't had stories told in games in this way for quite some time. And I think we've gotten used to them not being told this way. That now this feels weird. But at one point, this was how it was done. This was normal. So it's interesting, I think, in that regard. What did you think of the end of the demo?
Well, the end of the demo is pretty much playing out the beginning of the demo, which
is the two towers, right?
Which is like, yeah, it was straight up.
The two towers.
It was basically the beginning of the two towers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fine. Overly predictable though. Like, I would have loved if there was like a but I didn't experience that with it at all. But I thought that, well, the combat, like, you already did that at the beginning, right? So I
guess I was shocked at the level of brutality at which Phoenix was being murdered by Ifrit, and the begging of that to stop, and knowing that that was a child, and the fist going through the chest, and the father being beheaded in front of the child, and the blood splattering all over him, and the
That bit
chocobo
I
being
liked.
murdered.
Yeah, that bit was cool.
I suppose I found all of that pretty shocking for a Final Fantasy. I was like,
Yeah.
ah.
Okay. And I think that's an interesting point, right?
Yeah.
That's shocking for a Final Fantasy. However, it's not overly shocking.
I suppose I didn't watch all of Game of Thrones, right?
It doesn't have
So
to be,
I'm not as
but it doesn't have to be Game of Thrones,
I'm not as
right?
accustomed as you guys.
It doesn't have to be Game of Thrones, and I know that's the thing that this has been compared to the most. But actually, I'm not really like, yeah, okay. There's elements of it that's like very Game of Thronesy. I actually think its biggest influence is The Witcher,
Interesting.
even down to the character.
Yeah.
Clive is 100% a black-haired girl.
When you did send that message in, Adam, where you were half expecting to go, winds howling. Same thing. I was going around. At some point, he has to say, winds howling, because it's like,
Yeah, it is. It's like he's trying very hard to be Gareth.
yeah,
At points where his voice slips, right? Like that moment where he's like screaming to the Ifrit to please stop. That sounds like a completely different voice actor than what you're hearing much later. Like there's moments where he's like pleading and crying, and he sounds very different than when he's just chatting to ordinary people, where he's like trying to put on this Geralt voice or something. It's a bit odd.
It's hard to keep up that voice as well when you have a long bit of dialogue to do. Like it's much easier and shorter.
Yeah.
But when you're doing, and that's in general, if you are trying to do a voice like that anyway, and you've got a long bit of dialogue to deliver, it's really hard to maintain.
Why Christian
that
Bale
kind
started to sound really ridiculous as the
right. It's not to say anything about the actor. Actually, it's just genuinely give that to anyone, and that's actually, unless their voice naturally sounds that way, it's going to be quite difficult to maintain that. I actually think generally Ben Starr is the name of the guy playing Clive. I think generally he's doing a good job. Very interesting if you check him out in interviews. He's like a hardcore Final Fantasy fan. And you'd kind of think, you're like, yeah, well, of course you're going to say that. Like, it helps sell the game and shit. And then he was asked what his favorite Final Fantasy was, and he says Final Fantasy VIII. And then he goes into, like, explicit details about, like, shit that, like, nobody fucking knows what he's talking about. You know? And it's like, oh, you've played this. But then he's also referencing Final Fantasy XII and Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy V. And you're like, okay, I think this guy has played these games. And the moment this happened in Final Fantasy VII, and it's not like just that one moment everyone knows from the magazine. It's like, oh, okay, you've definitely played that game.
Yeah, I feel like
so it's kind of interesting.
Kind of hard to, especially because he's young enough too, right? Most, I suppose, young voice actors, even actors these days, right? Look, they're gamers. They're our age. Like they've grown up playing games. So but to see him to be such a, like, to have delved so deep into the series, that's pretty cool, I guess. But you kind of, I think you expect them to be gamers at this point.
Yeah. So what do we think of Clive as a character? And I don't know. Well, actually, where is everyone? Not where are you at, but like,
right, well, Adam,
how far into the game are you? Like
about 5 hours, I think.
Okay. 5 hours, and you said you're 23. That can't be true. It just can't be.
that can't be right.
I'm like, that cannot be true based on
unless
how much percentage I have and how far I am. It just can't mathematically be true. Anyway,
that's what it says on the fucking console.
Okay, I'm not doubting that your console's telling you that. I'm just like, what is wrong with your console? I don't know. Unless it's based purely on how far are you in the main story and not any of the side extracurricular activities. I don't know, but because like last I checked,
that progress is only the main story.
Okay, last I checked mine, and this is, I played a couple of hours last night, so I haven't checked it since I did that. But I was 59% of the way through, and that was after 29 hours.
Right, so I'm roughly same place. I think I was 28% hours in.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so that'd be that percentage.
Yeah.
So you can see why we're a bit like 5 hours and 23%.
It's like that sounds crazy.
Unless you are
Flying it.
speedrunning this and are way further than we are.
Yeah,
Way
maybe you
quicker
are.
time. You're
Um,
skipping all the cutscenes.
but yeah, so
Yeah.
okay, those are the various points we're at. I think I'm the furthest. Eric is a little bit behind me, and Adam would be a
Yes.
fair bit behind.
Yeah, I haven't
That.
played for the last. I didn't play any today, and I didn't play any yesterday because The Witcher Season 3 came out yesterday.
And you were like, "Why play as this Clive?" And I could watch this Clive.
Yeah.
I'm joking. Okay, what do we think of Clive as a character so far?
I like him because he's not your typical, I just want to be a sky pirate, He's not going, ah ha 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 ha. It's great.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to say for a Final Fantasy quite a lot in this discussion. But yeah, he's kind of a breath of fresh air as a protagonist.
Is the protagonist like
For a Final Fantasy.
Well, the protagonist for 15 wasn't too bad, was he? Like, the other guys are annoying.
I like 15. So I'm the wrong guy to ask. A lot of people seem to really dislike 15.
Here's
like
the interesting thing, right, about 15.
Yeah.
That was praised so much when that came out.
Right.
They got very high ratings. And I'm wondering if
then
history's
later-
going to really repeat itself here a bit.
Yeah.
Yes, now it gets shot on.
Which is funny because 15 got better. Like they I'm not joking. It was at its worst.
No, I
stage
agree.
When it
I agree.
first came out. When
Yeah,
it first came out, it was a disaster. I liked it, but it was a fucking disaster of a game.
Yeah.
And that's when everyone praised it, and then it got better, and everyone was like, "That game was shit."
Well, maybe it's one of
I don't
those
know.
things where like when they experienced the extended cut, I suppose, the Royal Edition version,
Yeah.
then they probably looked at the original, and we're talking about the original being bad because
Sure.
they started to realize,
Or it
oh,
put
that's
into
not a
per-
finished
yeah.
product.
It put into perspective maybe for them. It was like, wow, actually, yeah, this needed all of this stuff. Yeah, that game was really not finished. Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
There's also an element, I think, of like
Noctis, yeah,
once something gets out into the public, right? It's like critics will say one thing or reviewers will say one thing. But once the public gets its hand on it, it kind of almost shapes everyone's thought a little bit.
Right.
That even critics will start to agree with them because there's an element of like, well, I don't want to be shot on, so
Yeah. And we do live in an echo chamber, right? And
yeah.
opinion gets thrown back at you. So yeah, that's true.
But no, Noctis isn't a terrible protagonist.
No, he's okay.
Yeah,
He's alright.
from the very limited hours I'd put into 15, I quite liked the
And his
Yeah. and lightning
progression
wasn't
is quite
too
cool.
bad, as far as I remember.
She was okay.
So I think
Yeah.
post 10, the protagonists have been pretty okay.
Well,
Vaughn,
post
right? I suppose
12, post
when I t-
12, they all went.
Okay,
Maybe we should start looking at Cloud again or something.
right, yeah, yeah.
right, and then
Well,
even
Squall
yeah,
was alright, wasn't he?
I think you had 3 in a row, I guess, right? You had 3 blonde, annoying protagonists in a row. A lot of people are gonna like Zidane, I know, right? But there's also like if you have him when he's voiced in the Dissidia games and stuff, there's a certain characteristic to him it's quite annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Titus, I don't care. It's not fucking Titus.
I don't care what the city says.
I don't actually care what the official. It's fucking Titus. No, I know it's Titus, but I will forever call him Titus. Titus is a great character, but his voice is fucking annoying.
Yeah.
And Vaughn is the most unbearable protagonist I think I've ever played as. Like, do you know Final Fantasy XII was the first game I ever went and bought with my own money?
Wow.
I was so excited to play that game. And I look, again, Final Fantasy is such a strange anthology series. Everyone has their favorites. 12 people love 12. And even at the time it was highly rated. Like I picked it up and on the front it said 10 out of 10 masterpiece stuff and I was like, fuck yeah. This is the first
what I'm
game
here
I'm ever
for.
buying. But I just didn't click with it at
Well, I
all.
suppose, like,
know?
you know, we at that point we played 7, we played 10.
Yeah.
Like, we're on a high at that point. Like,
Right.
and I think that's the pinnacle of Final Fantasy 7 and 10. I think they're fucking just they are masterpieces.
They're god tier.
So like, you know, to hear such high praise, but I've not seen a Final Fantasy when it comes out, when it gets released, not get high praise. Maybe 14,
the MMO when it first launched.
yeah,
right.
and
like
perhaps
it's
some of the 13 derivatives, maybe.
Right, or like Stranger Paradise.
But even
that
10-2, I remember 10-2 getting
I'll
fucking...
kill Chaos. I'll fucking kill you, Chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that game was strange.
I think I see a clip from, because in all the previous Final Fantasy games, usually when someone is like, "Ooh, I gotta tell you my backstory," and it's going to be this long tangent, and like you said, Chris, you put down the controller because, you know, it's back in the day. I think it's Stranger Paradise. This one person starts to tell Jack his backstory, and he's just like, "Yeah, I don't care." And he just keeps walking.
Yeah, and then he just punches the wall or something.
Yeah. I think a villain starts to talk to him. He went, "I don't care," and he just jumps up and punches him in the face. And I guess with
I hope
Clive,
that's true.
It is.
He
No,
does.
I'm
I'm telling you, that happens.
That is what happens. He doesn't give a shit. And he jumps up, and I get that kind of vibe from Clive, but like toned down, like really toned down.
Right.
Like he doesn't. When we get him after the demo, right, he is a much more broken character. So his personality makes sense in his like lack of wanting to get to know people and stuff. He has very like a disconnected view, and I kind of like that because that then gives the character this journey that he then goes on and to reconnect with people, I suppose, which is a nice little goal.
I quite like him as a character. I quite like the arc that he has. I would say that the actually, yeah. What do we all think of the story so far? And we won't talk specifics, but what do we think of the story?
We go to Adam first.
Yeah, go to Adam first, because
well, it's fine.
Right.
Oddly enough, right, I'm not far into it, but it feels small. Like, this feels like a really small Final Fantasy.
In terms of scale?
Kind of, yeah. Like, everything about it feels small. The amount of people I've met, it's like, it's very intimate. Everything about it is quite intimate in comparison to something like with 7, at least, it was like this big corporation that you're going against, right? Like, that felt huge in itself. Never mind what it becomes, right?
Yeah.
And then 10, it's like, oh yeah, this fucking god. Like, you know, like, it's massive. Everything is massive in those games. This feels really, really small. It's like, I just after this dude, you know. Yeah. And I am sure, you know, as
on purpose, right?
Like, I'm sure as it goes on, it, you know, you end up fighting God, but
that's how Final Fantasy goes, right?
That's how it goes. Yeah, you end up fighting.
And none of us have finished this, but you always fight God at the end.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're all expecting.
So the aspects I'm kind of drawn to is more I think the social structure of some of the characters. There's like a hierarchy to some, and then from the demo we were introduced to dominance. That thing in particular is what's really, like, I'm really hooked on that aspect, because you've almost now introduced you've started to bring in comic book heroes into Final Fantasy. Basically, this is the X-Men. This is superhero genre, and that's why I feel this is quite small, because if you look at any of those superhero stuff, it's always focused on just the heroes. It's not focused on a wider, grander scale, nearly. So it just seems really focused on, at the moment anyway, on these dominants.
It's interesting you said that, because I was actually thinking the same thing. I think it's in the demo, actually, so I can mention it. When kind of Sid and Benedicta kind of have a brief little conflict.
Oh, that's in the
iconic challenge. In the iconic challenge in the chapel thing. Yeah.
Right, sure.
And it reminded me of X-Men. It reminded me of these superhero characters. And so it is interesting you brought that up, because I'm getting that aspect with the icons as well and the dominance. So
I'm right, which is I'm like, this is a superhero like graphic novel story. I said it before as well. I thought that the whole branded thing, aspect of the story is very like the X-Men.
Mm.
Yeah.
Where it's like you are, without going into too much detail, like people are treated differently because of the way they're born and because of abilities that they have and that kind of thing. There's a political aspect to that. And yes, this is very much a hero's journey. And you're right. As big as the spectacle is, it's a very intimate game and a very intimate story. And I feel like it's on purpose. Like I feel like the writers really very much wanted to tell a very intimate and in their own way grounded story. One thing I do appreciate about the game is I feel like everything is grounded within its own reality. Like there's a system in it called the active time lore, which I think is pretty cool. And everything has an explanation, at least so far. Have any of you used that?
No.
Yeah. Okay, I've only used
seen
it
it, but
sometimes.
I would see it. I would read only the parts where where we're talking about like when there's like updates to particular places and people and stuff. Yeah.
No, at any time during a cutscene.
yeah, you pause it basically with the trackpad.
This is where I like it. Let's say you didn't play the game for a month, right?
No.
You didn't know about this? Okay, so the active time lore system.
They probably told it to me and I didn't know how the fuck it worked.
Yeah. So during any cutscene, if you hold down the touchpad,
Right.
it'll pause, it'll bring up a couple of icons, of the things that are relevant to that particular cutscene, whether it's people or a place or something, and you can click onto it and it'll give you a bit of information about it. So it's like bringing up a codex. So let's say characters were talking and they're throwing out names and places, and you're just like, hold on, whoa, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I don't know what. You could pause it, you could and go, oh yeah, okay, okay, I'm back with you, let's go. So it's like a little moment of giving yourself a recap, without the characters in game constantly explaining to each other, because they live in that world. It really wouldn't make sense for someone to be like, such and such does this and they do that, and So I find it's a good system because it's optional. You don't have to do it, so it's not. No one's forcing you to interrupt the scene, but if you want to, you can. So I think it's pretty cool. And if you did like, let's say you put the game down for like a year and came back to it, and you were totally fucking lost. Which there's plenty of games I've played actually where I actually take it like going, this system would have been handy. Like there's other games where it's like, I think actually I would have used that in other games where I have no idea what the fuck is going on, and I end up restarting the game as a result to catch up on what I just don't remember. Whereas if you had something like that, you might be like, oh yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah. So I think it's handy. But yeah.
That'd be a super handy thing in like a From Software game, to be honest. Because it's so often, because they would speak like that. They would speak like, yes, we do this and this and this, and of course you know about this because it's our world. It's like, no man, you're speaking in Shakespeare.
Yeah,
I don't understand what you're saying. Never mind what you mean.
But Eric, what do you think of the story so far, apart from the superhero
aspect of
comparisons?
it? I think it's really, I do think it's interesting. I think the long gameplay section of getting from one place to the next to really get to that next cool story beat can sometimes take too long or something. I don't know. I think, but other than that, like when they start dealing with the politics side of it, which I suppose is where people draw the Game of Thrones comparison. So I think the politics side of it is very Game of Thronesy, but then when you're actually in the world as Clive roaming around, I think that's like The Witcher.
Yeah.
And then when you have the icon battles, it's X-Men.
It's fucking Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z.
Or whatever.
Fucking go Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it is really interesting, and I am wanting to keep going because there is a particular cutscene. I don't know if you've reached it. There's a particular cutscene where it's just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And now I'm like because I think there was a bit quite early on in the game where I was a bit like, fuck me, this is a drag. Like, okay, right, let's just do this. All right, okay, yeah. And I think also the fights when I was fighting enemies, it was just taking forever, and I was like, oh, fuck it, Jesus. It's only when you get more iconic abilities do you really like, I'm fucking these guys.
Which takes too long. I think it
take
takes too long to build up that arsenal.
Yeah,
it does. Because now that I have a few, I'm having fun with the combat. But there was a while where I was like, this is a bit. It's like, I think I said before, where I was like, if 7 Remake hadn't come out, and this was the next game after 15, it would feel like a natural step forward. Because the combat is more engaging than 15's combat, right? Even though 15 has that nice party system, there's not a lot to the combat in 15. However, having played 7 Remake, this feels like a step backwards in terms of combat. Because 7 Remake's combat is unbelievable. And is like the pinnacle of Final Fantasy combat systems.
I agree with that.
So in that sense, I feel like it's a step backwards. But anyway.
But yes, there's a certain story beat anyway in this game that made me go, okay, I do need to keep going. I do need to keep going. And even if there are points where there's lows, it's like, no, because I know that there's something waiting at the end of that tunnel, the end of that rabbit hole. So yeah, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I'm pretty much playing for the story. Not that I don't like hate the combat or anything. I can't help but feel like there is better combat systems. So I'm not like totally in love with the combat, but it's fine. It's serviceable. But the story is what I'm really playing for. I need to know how this ends. I need to get to that ending. There are serious lows, even like the ones Eric is referring to earlier. There's more lows to come. There's points where main quests feel like side quests. And you're like, right, fine, let me get that out of the way. Now, give me the next big thing. It's like, now you have to do this little favor for someone. And you're like, fuck me. I need to go to bed soon, and I want to see something fucking cool before I go to bed. So show me something fucking cool. But when you push past all that and you get something cool, you go, wow, that was so fucking cool. I want to do that again. So it's like this, like, it's this weird, like, ebbs and flows experience of, like, incredible highs and then some very, like, weird lows that are a PS2 game. I don't know how else to describe it. Where it's like you're told to do something, and then you walk a couple of steps to talk to someone, and it starts another cutscene. Then you walk another couple of steps to talk. Like, I'm reminded of MGS2. I'm saying this as someone who fucking loves that game, by the way. Where it's like a cutscene just ended. You walk through a hallway, and another cutscene starts. And it's like, this is so weird that we're back there now in this particular game.
I think it's.
Is it bad? I don't know, because it was good then.
I was talking to Erica a little bit about this, where I was saying, like, I don't understand what aspect of this game needs the PS5.
Right.
Like, I don't get it. Like, there's no, like, it's not as if it utilizes the controller like a ton.
It's got to be the big cutscenes, right?
I don't know. Like, I don't. It's as you describe, right? Like, it kind of reminds me, if I think of any Final Fantasy that it reminds me of, it's in terms of its linear structure, maybe Crisis Core.
I thought that too, and
like,
I suppose it doesn't help when you have the blue dotted lines at the end of a map, and it's like, that's Crisis Core. Like, there's a Crisis Core mission structure to some of the quests.
Yeah, it's like these. It's just corridors that we're running through, and it's like.
Yeah,
and why is there so many cutscenes? Normally, like you mentioned in MGS2, right? The main reason for those cutscenes was to help load. You load stuff in as the cutscenes happen. And
right,
that's
but
why
it was also
they were loading some amount of fucking assets with those cutscenes. So.
But it was also the reason you were playing.
Well,
like
partially,
the gameplay was great, but the reason you were playing was for that next cutscene.
Yeah, they were incredibly engaging, and
story time.
We've gotten to a point, like, I mean, we play Naughty Dog games for the same reason, I would say, it's those performances. I mean, the gameplay is fun in between for sure, but the way they tell the story, and I think I'm really torn with this game. I just do not know how to feel with it because
interesting. Yeah.
I'm just so like I don't understand it. I don't understand it at all. Games have come such a long way that I think the cutscenes should be better than this. There are some cutscenes are just really, really good, like what we saw in the demo. Like they're
some
incredible.
of them are fucking incredible. Yeah.
But there's others that are just like almost like Bethesda level. Like it's just two people standing there talking to each other.
Right. Well, I was also reminded of within the Final Fantasy camp, Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? Which I think is an incredible game. Some of those cutscenes are the coolest thing you've ever seen. And then some of the in-game shit is two people talking to each other, and you go, well, that NPC looks like fucking shit.
Yeah, but I don't think those conversations
Right?
aren't as long or as boring.
I don't know, man. And as well, like, some of there's really menial side quests here in Final Fantasy 16. Now, I will say some of them later on are really good. So it's really hard to know whether you've looked out and got a really good side quest or whether you've got a bad side quest. Because some of them are just really pointless fetch quests.
Yeah, and you don't exactly have to go far either. It's like, go over there.
Right? But some of them do great storytelling for the world.
Yeah.
And some of them are like, you either learn something about characters that you know, you end up getting something from it, or you're like, wow, this world is fucking twisted through some of the side quests. So it's hard to see because there's no signifier as to whether you're just landed a good one or not. But I've been doing all of them as I've been going along.
Yeah, I
don't want to miss anything.
I'm doing them all too, just because of my experience with 7. You know, it is similar. Like some of the side quests were shit.
Because early on you're like looking for people's cats and shit, and you're like,
yeah.
This is the most menial thing ever. But then later on you get one who's like, oh, that was actually really, really good. I learned something about the characters I've been dealing with, like the
but also
Angel
we know
of the Slums
from
or whatever.
RPG games, doing side quests gives you an opportunity to explore the world a little bit more, see areas that you haven't seen before or you wouldn't have gone to otherwise. Maybe encounter a
gain
new
XP
enemy
and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and as well from doing the side quests, I have a really cool sword now that I'm like, if I was to find a better sword, I don't know if I would swap out for the one I have though, because I like the one I have. Yeah, and that's cool, right? And I got that because of a side quest. Doing the side quest wasn't fun, but the result of it was. So there is that kind of. I don't know. But I am.
Do you think
it
is a weird direction though to go from what 15 was? These more open areas to explore, to now basically corridor level.
Well, there are open areas to explore in 16.
There are
quite
there
open.
Are big open areas later in 16.
Yeah.
Just not quite as big as 15. But the problem with the big open area of 15 was barely. There wasn't much motivation to go around and explore. Now, when you do find some really cool stuff. But once you kind of get to a certain point in 15, it's then a straight road. It's linear.
Well, right. Final Fantasy has always been a linear game. Right? There's exploration
with open
for
areas,
sure.
Yeah.
But it's always been a linear game. It's always about following the story.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to tell a linear story while giving the player free open choice. It's quite difficult.
Yeah, not so much free open choice. I just think like even I think it's a recent enough IGN article, and I didn't read the whole thing. I just saw kind of the highlights of it, and it really resonated with me, with my experience at 16 at the moment, and that's that God of War and Ghost of Tsushima are better RPG games.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is an aspect of this is what I was saying. Like I'm playing for. So, maybe it sounds like I'm hating on this game. I'm really enjoying it so far. But like I said, I'm playing for the story. Right?
Do you agree currently with your own, even the two of you, right? With your own position, do you agree with the current ratings in which the game has had? Like, have you read any of the reviews yet?
Yeah,
No.
I did. I checked out the reviews. Yeah.
I'm not seeing now. The reviews are not. Most of them weren't even talking about story. Right, they're just talking about purely the mechanics, the technicalities of it, and I'm
I've seen.
I don't know what they're talking about, and I'm just not seeing what they're seeing. Like some of them I've even seen that this is the finest combat in any Final Fantasy.
Right, and I've already said I don't agree with that.
Yeah,
I've seen
Right.
I've seen 2 reviews on Twitter, one by Jason Schreier and one by Yang Ye,
right.
and they gave non-spoiler reviews on only the story, and literally their sentences were. With both of them, it was just sentences going, the first 2/3 of the story are great, and then the last third gets a little magic mumbo jumbo, and it kind of loses itself a bit. That's it.
That's weird.
But then
we might
you
end up
could
loving that
Yeah.
last third.
Yeah. No, but you could slap that review on any Final Fantasy game. That's all Final Fantasies, you know? I think about I mean I don't want to speculate too much because obviously where I am, I'm at a very different point to where you're at, so I have different background information. So but I was thinking about it the other day as well, like the way I was playing this game, because like Eric, you said before, Final Fantasy IX is like the Pixar movie of the Final Fantasy series, which I agree with. And I think that's actually a compliment to that game. I don't think that's like that means that that's like a little game. Like it's fucking funny and charming and beautifully animated, and and this one is like the HBO series of Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
And it really is like a series. It's quite episodic. Like, it's not broken up into episodes. It's not like chapters or anything, but I feel like you hit certain points, you're like, well, this is where the episode ends, and I go to bed and I speculate on that for a while. And there's a lot of chunks in it where I feel like I'm watching Lost again, where I'm going, this is a fucking pointless episode. Like, nothing's happening. But then, just at the very end of the episode, the camera pans down and shows numbers on the hatch, and I go, oh, I need to keep going. And I'm like, and then the next episode, and I'm watching, I'm like, oh no, go back to the numbers on the hatch thing. That's why I clicked play. Like, go, stop. I don't care where Sun's ring is, right? So I'm getting those kind of feelings where there's certain little plot points that they keep coming back to, and they'll like move it forward a little bit, and then they'll come back to something else, and I'm like, no, keep going. I want to know what happens next. So, and then I keep playing because I want to get to that bit again. And in that way, they have me on a hook. You know, they're kind of stringing me along. If it was a TV show, I'd be tuning in every single week because I need to see where that aspect of the story goes, and I need to see how it's all going to unfold and how it's all going to end. I mean, we could probably, from playing Final Fantasies before, you could probably predict you probably will fight God at the end, and you'll probably win, and that's the story, right? But I don't know quite how it's going to turn out, and I'm interested to see what twists and turns it'll take. So yeah, I'm kind of hooked on the story.
Speaking of the episodic thing, actually, that is one thing I don't like about the game, and it's one thing where I'm like, I can clearly tell this was made by an MMO team.
Oh, okay.
Which is not just the colorful writing that pops up at the side to be like iconic attack, go precision dodge, and all that sort of stuff.
Well, that's the Devil May Cry stuff, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, Devil May Cry, but you would get all that colorful writing on MMOs and stuff like that. But it's the quest complete.
Yes.
Quest complete.
Yes.
Quest. I was like, stop telling me. I fucking know. I just did the quest.
Not only is a quest complete, right?
Enemies slain.
This is the first. Yeah, this is the first time I've ever played a Final Fantasy game. Like, because normally you always get those, like, summary at the end, what XP you got, any items you've collected, and stuff like that, right? This is the only one that I've ever done that when that comes up, it doesn't actually feel victorious, like, at all. Because it's just silent. Like, there's some higher hitting enemies, and they have that really cool rendition of
Yeah.
But
it's like, after like big main bosses, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah, whereas I would prefer if they had maybe an even grander edition for those. But like that should be all the time, because otherwise it almost feels like, you know, when your game glitches out and the audio cuts out. Like that's how it feels, and it just feels. I like nothing about this game at the moment from where I am, and I'm 25% true or whatever has been.
Probably more like fucking 15, man.
No, honestly, that's what the fuck it says on it. I'll go down.
Okay, that's what it says. Okay.
Nothing has been exciting. I'm absolutely bored playing this game.
Oh, someone quote that, put that. Oh, gee, cancel at him.
Yeah, and I'm just
Because the defenders love this game, but
mine.
there are a lot of people don't like it too. You know,
Yes,
and
I
there
can
are.
kind of see where, there's a lot of hate. There's a lot of things. This isn't my Final Fantasy. This kind of thing, just because it's not turn based. Which every Final Fantasy has been different, and every time there's a Final Fantasy that comes out, there's people saying that this isn't like Final Fantasy.
So that means it's exactly like Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think. I don't think going down the action RPG road is a bad idea. I just think the execution is not good.
Sure. Right? Maybe there's a better version of this that comes down the line. And I don't mean this game, but I mean maybe Final Fantasy 17 builds on that and makes it better again, you know?
Maybe, but I
Um,
think they almost had it. They almost had it with 7. And it's
no, they do have it. They have it. Like,
no like 7 was still incorporating some, like, that was a perfect mashup between the traditional menu system and how do we make it feel like Advent Children, like they managed to do that perfectly. But if you wanted to get rid of the menu system and just go on full action, like, half my screen is covered up. Most of the time,
See,
I'm doing shit, I can't even see what I'm doing.
I think the mistake is, personally now, I think the mistake is doing away with menus. I know some people don't like that, but one thing that for me is, like, this game is very Final Fantasy, right? In terms of the story and what's included in it. You got your crystals and your chocobos and Moogles are in it, and all those things that you expect from a Final Fantasy are there. There's a great Cid. There's a fantastic Cid in this game. But I'm missing things like being able to go through my menu to cast haste, or use a Phoenix down, or use an ether to put up my MP.
Yeah,
Or
oddly
use-
enough, we have less abilities.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's less options in terms of the things that I usually expect in it. Because, like, yeah, the story and setting always changes, but there was always those things. Those were some of the, to me, like, Phoenix Downs and stuff are just like chocobos and Moogles and summons. They're the things that tie the series together. They're like the little, constants in the series. And yes, there's potions and high potions or whatever, but I'm missing those aspects. And I don't know how you fit them in without interrupting the action, which is obviously they've come to the decision that you can't. So you.
But
you leave them
even
out.
the direction they went, Devil May Cry is a better action system. God of War is a better action system. There are other games. Their attempt to go into the action realm is on the lower end of those, I think. And they've been caught in that argument. I think was like where they don't want to be, they want to be an RPG company, not a JRPG company. They want to be an RPG company. So I don't mind them going in this direction. It gives us something new and different. But I just think their attempt at doing action RPG isn't as good as what we've been getting.
What do you think, Eric?
Well, I
Go on,
think
disagree. Be the one who disagrees. Fuck it.
I think I did say this to you, Chris. No, I wish that they had Final Fantasy VII's menu system, because I find that you start off, you have the Phoenix ability, so you can cast fire, but I don't cast fire ever. Really, rarely do I ever cast fire. Why would I cast fire? It's weak and pointless, and there's no better version of fire. There's just literally you shoot fire, or you charge up and then shoot it. But by the time you've charged up, the enemies hit you and you've uncharged it. So
And you're like, hey, I want to spend more MP on fire and fire
right,
again.
but you don't have MP. You just kind of spam it.
Yeah.
So no, I do wish there was MP, because MP is in a lot of the final. It's not all the Final Fantasy games, but it's in a lot of the Final Fantasy games. And yes, you do have your fire again. You have your other ones and stuff. And I would have liked to have had them. So I would have liked to have the menu, but also in that you do have companions with you sometimes, right? On the journey.
Mm-hmm.
I forget they're there. because
Yeah.
I can't do anything with them.
That is
But
a poor omission. Yeah.
yeah, so I wish I was able to give them commands. Now you can give Torgal the dog commands.
He's a good boy.
I would
He's
do
a
without
very
that.
good boy.
He is a good
But
boy.
that's the thing. I have now the yoke where I have an accessory where it just makes Torgal automatically do attacks for me.
Yeah.
But I really don't want to have that accessory. I'd rather swap that out for something else. And Rodder's Torgal, yes, does his own thing.
Swap it out. Honestly, he will do his own thing.
Does he?
Yeah, I don't use that. He attacks away. And then if I want to, I might go over to him and like make him deliberately attack a certain enemy or heal me. But to be honest, I'm so powerful, I don't need Torgal's help. So honestly, take that ring out, because I know there's nothing more annoying, because I think I had it on at one point to try it. And within 5 minutes was just annoyed at how many times I went, sick him boy, get him boy,
Yeah,
good
that
boy,
is annoying
stick him
as hell.
boy. So I turned it off immediately, and he never says it, and it's great.
Like I actually I didn't notice any of that. But I do think the omission of being able to tell your companions what to do and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it would
you miss a
be,
party, right?
yeah, you want a party. You know, even 15, you had a party the whole. Now it's the same people the whole time, but at least you had the party. So that was the thing about 15. It was like, oh, I like these characters, but I also wish I had other people to join me on this
Yeah.
ragtag. You know, so
I find the comparisons, and there's a good discussion to be had. Like, I find the comparisons of 15 and 16 so fascinating, because 15 for me did a lot of what 16 is not doing, and I miss some of it. And 16 is doing an awful lot of what 15 was missing. And it's so interesting, and it's like, I find they're both missing elements of each other that maybe I would have found in previous Final Fantasies, which is like the balance of the two things. Like, the big problem with 15 was that there was just no lore. There was, but there was fuck all. It was buried, and you didn't really get a sense of the world at all. 16 has that in spades. It's full of lore. It's full of history. It's a well thought out world, and every character has an arc. Even the ones you think don't have an arc have an arc. You know, if you do everything, everyone has an arc.
remember that crabgrass you stepped on at the start of the game? It's going to come back for you,
Yeah,
man.
you wait till that twist with the crab. But and this is one actually where it sounds like I'm just bashing the game actually.
You are, Chris. You actually hate the game.
Well, here's the thing: because we can't talk spoilers, I can't gush about the game. So I can only talk about the other aspects of the game that I don't like as much as.
But
I like
yeah,
the story.
I think that's
Right?
ultimately kind of my issue with the game is. Otherwise, just give me a movie. I think the game needs to be solid, and you know, like even with 10, there are moments where, like, you know, walking down corridors to cutscenes, that's boring as fuck. It is, but 10's battle system was cool.
Well, I do think. Okay, so while I find, and again, it doesn't help that I've played another game where I'm like, oh, I wish the combat was like that, right? Like, I think the boss battles in this game are fantastic, and I love playing the boss fights. And I suppose I find myself looking for the next boss fight. So those are aspects where it's like, to just watch that might not be as fun.
I don't think I actually quite understand the battle system in this game.
Okay, possible.
I think because I have seen a lot of people. I've seen people praise this to say this is better than Final Fantasy VII's battle system. I'm really not understanding, because I'm not finding any form of challenge whatsoever. Like, there's no moment like in 7, like when you're fighting like the house,
Hell House, yeah.
Hell House, like, and like there's that's not just that moment. There's even moments before that, where you're like really scraping and you're worried that you're not gonna make it, and you come out in the end, and it was just the battle was such a great experience, and it was cinematic in itself. Here, yeah, we're back in PS2 days. There's this, it feel well. There's
I
it's hard
think
to say without
for
spoiling
me,
it, but
for
it's just there are moments where, let's say, the combat is taken. I just feel like the combat is taken out of your hands. I'm just mashing a button,
Yeah.
and like the game is doing cool stuff, but I'm not. I'm not a participant in that, really.
Do you, by any chance, have a particular accessory on that means that all you have to do is press square and then Clive is doing all the awesome shit? Because I know there is an accessory that does that.
There's like, well, the three accessories I have is like, one is doing like combos, one is doing
Yeah,
Take that off.
Take that off. That's why
Take
the
that
action.
off.
That's why
But
the
I've
action's
got
taken out of
nothing
your
else
hands.
to really.
Yeah, it doesn't
Oh,
matter.
but just take that off. Don't use
You'll
that.
get others later, but that's why the combat is now taken out of your hands, because you've literally put an item on that takes the combat out of your hands.
Why
Yeah,
give
that's
you
true.
that?
Actually, it's there for people who find the game difficult. It's an accessibility thing. They don't have to. So okay,
But at the beginning, it asks you
okay.
whether or not you want accessibility. I said no. So why?
No,
why would
so
that even be there?
they have 5 rings of timely whatever
Right.
that are available from the start of the game, right? So you can play story focused mode, which will automatically give you certain rings
Right. I
to
didn't
just
click that
put you
one.
on the path of the story, or action focused.
That's the one I.
But
clicked.
you can go in, and you can go in and customize how difficult you want it. So the idea is, you try out the game, maybe you try out a couple of the rings, and you find the ones that best work for you. I'm using one, and I've used it for the whole game, and it's working for me perfectly. I used the ring of timely evasion because I found the only thing I found difficult was timing dodge, and also
Okay.
I hated where dodge is because to me it's circle. So I kept pushing circle when I wanted to dodge, which push
Rather
you
than R1.
towards the enemy, and I got hit every time by the big thing I was trying to dodge. So I said, right, I'm not getting that. It's not working for me. So I'm putting on the ring that takes that out of my hands, but I'm doing everything else.
Yeah.
So like, there's another one you can put on that if you find keeping an eye on your health difficult, that it will automatically use your
Yeah, I
potions
took that
if
one
your
off
health
because-
gets too low, right?
Yeah, that's annoying.
Same with like Eric's using the one that automatically controls Torgal.
Mm.
I'm not using that one.
I also use one where it doesn't make me automatically dodge, but it prompts the dodge button, so then it reminds me R1 is the dodge, and then I dodge that way. So
Right.
it still gives me that control to dodge, but also reminds me, by the way, R1 dodge. And then the
Yes.
other one just gives me more money, and I like money.
Yeah, so that was their it's kind of experimental. That's their approach at creating a sense of accessibility in the game. It's like
It doesn't say that
edit.
What do you mean?
though. Like
Yeah, what do you mean?
on the accessory, like it doesn't say equip this if you want easier combat.
Well, it says in yellow what it
Okay.
does though.
Yeah.
So if you don't have it, then you
Yeah, I
know
thought it was
it's
just
not
like,
doing that.
you know, it just helped.
You thought it was like a perk.
Yeah, like
Oh, no.
as in it gives you a combo.
Now, I'm not saying. Look at it again. I'm not saying the gameplay, the game is hard or anything. Like I've only had one game over in the entire game, and I'm not like an expert person or anything like that. Obviously, the Ring of Time and Evasion has helped with that. But take off some of your ones, and
Okay.
you'll
Give it a go.
definitely find it a little bit more engaging than
Yeah,
you're
because
finding.
I really want to.
Your experience is definitely worse than my experience.
Yeah, because I
Because I
really,
think-
I really just like I'm just not understanding where's the tactic in it, you know, like and yeah, a lot of the enemies that I'm fighting, it's just taking a long time to kill them as opposed to,
Mhm.
you know, it's like a challenge
Okay.
or whatever.
Now, yes, here's this the thing as well. So I did have that one, the timely combo thing, and within 2 seconds, I was like, the minute the fight was over, I took that off because I was like, that's stupid. That's not good because he's doing everything for me. It's not very engaging. But when I took it off, and the control was back in my hands, those enemies still took a long time to kill.
Oh yeah, and they will.
So, but again, it's as you get
Until-
more abilities. When you
Yeah,
get more
until you have
abilities,
more abilities and you're using the stronger abilities and you're picking which abilities you want to hotkey and you're cycling through, and eventually when you have at least three icons to your, it starts feeling a little bit like, when if you're playing 7 Remake and you're Cloud and you queue up an ability and you immediately swap over to Tifa and queue up an ability and you immediately swap over to Barret and queue up an ability, and it's all happening quite fast. You get to that point where you can start doing that, where it's like you use an ability, swap over to the next one, use an ability, swap over, and he's doing them all like fast and instantly, and suddenly an enemy's life is going way down, or you have abilities that are attacking multiple enemies at once, and it not only looks like way more spectacle, but you have lots of enemies going down quicker, and you're like, I'm a fucking badass. It just takes a very long time to get there.
Interesting.
But I do like at the point I'm at, again, and I'm not saying that this is the best combat ever. I've already pointed out what I think the issues are with it. But I do feel like a badass when I go into battle now, and I'm finding there was a lot of fights if I didn't have to do them, I was skipping earlier. Whereas now I'm like, bring it on, and I run in to fight.
There is one thing.
I'll give that a go, because I would like to. Well, yeah, I'd like my my journey between points to be somewhat enjoyable.
Yeah, of course.
So I'll give that a shot.
There is sometimes that I found
the more you know.
Start.
Yeah, that was helpful.
Or if I'm in big open areas and I know that an enemy's come my way, I wish I had that warp strike from 15 because it was handy.
That. I loved that.
Throw the blade and then you warp and you're just hitting the enemy straight away, and then that was very cool.
It's why even though I've gotten other icons, I won't say which ones I've gotten, I have always kept the fire one in my 3, because the circle ability on the fire one is the warp strike.
Yeah.
And I love the warp strike. I think it's like, that's how I'm going to start every fight. When I get in, I go, pshung, and then when I'm in the middle, I'll do some ability that knocks out a few guys at once.
Now, still speaking on combat, but going back to Adam's point about the boss fights being a bit kind of like they're lacking something.
Sure.
For me personally, I think it's and I'm gonna get shot for this. It's the music.
Ah, yes. Well, I do think this needs to be brought up, right? And this is definitely going to be a massive difference of opinion to the masses, apparently, because one of the things that I've seen repeatedly is that one of the best things about this game is the music. That the music is incredible. That there's certain scores that I can't tell you about right now that are just unbelievable. And I'm not hearing it. I don't know.
I
don't know what everyone's on about.
Pretty good. I have had no issues with the music, other than there's some aspects where it's missing.
Right. So we'll take the combat music. You're in the Greenwood or the Great Wood, whatever it's called, and I remember the combat music kicked in, and I was like, "Oh, it's not bad." Then it kicks at a certain point where it kind of gets stuck in your head, and you're like, "Oh, that's really cool." When you're about 100 battles in, you're a bit like, "This is getting a bit boring," because I'm hearing it over and over and over and over and over and over.
Ah, well, come on now. That is Final Fantasy, though.
I know it's Final.
You play Final Fantasy X in that battle music, like.
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily that's pretty good, but then after a while that does get annoying. But it's not quite Final Fantasy VII's. Final Fantasy VII's never gets boring. It's awesome.
Yeah, I know, but and you're comparing to the greatest music score ever, you know.
Well, true, right? But then you get even the boss music. I actually think the fighting the normal enemies music is better than fighting the bosses. Because there's a particular bit in the boss music.
I know the bit you mean, where it becomes like a ballroom dance kind of piece of music.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
that keeps happening, and I'm like, I don't like that.
And
I can't really recall, so I don't know.
For me, it always happens. The ballroom music always happens in this big, awesome spectacle moment, and I'm like, this is now instantly made anticlimactic by this ballroom music.
Yeah.
But if this was Final Fantasy 15 or Final Fantasy, not 10, actually, 10 didn't really have great boss music, actually.
It's interesting because I am in agreement with you, right? Yeah. By the way, I do not think the music is terrible.
No, it's not terrible. It's just
not terrible, right? It's just
not suiting the spectacle that I'm seeing.
One of the Final Fantasy series is one of the best series for music, period. And that's one of the highest things that are held up in the series. And the thing that made Final Fantasy 15 so playable to me was the music to that game is fucking incredible. It's right up there with a lot of it sounds very like it's right in vein with the Final Fantasy X score. And then there's just some amazing epic pieces of music in that game, like fucking incredible. And Final Fantasy XVI and everyone is praising the music so much, and maybe it's just a different taste in music. I'm finding it's not scored badly. It's not like the pieces of music are awful. I even like some of the when you're just roaming around. Some of the background music I think is lovely and really fitting. Um, but there's not a single track that I want to like add to a playlist or go back and listen to.
Yeah.
And I always do when I play a Final Fantasy. Like that's if there's one thing
I
I will
think the
latch onto, it's the music.
the music in the menu is cool. I really like that music.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, yeah, kind of. But yeah, it's an orchestration
Yeah.
of the main theme, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
that's a
but
really cool
it's-
rendition of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was listening to the composer is like held up by the Final Fantasy XIV community. He's the composer of the Final Fantasy XIV, and like people absolutely love this guy. He's like a legend. And then like because I've heard so many people say that they're so happy that people are playing 16 and that they're like you could those who haven't played 14 can finally hear the mastery of this guy, you know what I mean? And I'm like I just disagree. I don't know. But I'm not saying the guy isn't talented. I'm just saying that I'm not blown away by it.
Right, yeah, he's good, but
But-
it's a little bit like someone talks about some composers like, oh my god, it's amazing. And it's like, yeah, no, they're really good. They're just not quite Hans Zimmer. You know, it's like
well,
they're
what I was
good,
going to
but-
say was he was doing an interview and I thought it was really interesting, and it was brought up because of the main theme, his orchestration of the main theme, which is a really good orchestration of the main theme and gives it a darker feeling. He was he was asked about, I don't mind spoiling this because it's an absence of something. There is no Chocobo theme in Final Fantasy 16. There really isn't one. There's a hint at one, but there isn't actually a Chocobo theme. And he was asked why not. And he said he tried everything he could. He went, you can put the Final Fantasy main theme into a minor key and it sounds great. He said, but when you do that to the Chocobo theme, it doesn't sound anything like the Chocobo theme. And he said he could not find a version that fitted the gritty world that this game is. So there is no Chocobo theme.
I am disappointed. I honestly at this
Were you
point
holding out for one?
I was holding
later
out
on
for
he's gonna
just
play
some
these
point. Just some point.
Well, that's
Talk
what he
about
said. Now, maybe he's lying and maybe there is one later. I haven't finished the game, but
Oh my God.
supposedly,
If
no,
it's for
there's
the,
no Chocobo
the
theme.
last boss fight is the Chocobo music,
The
and you're
Chocobo.
fighting Fat Chocobo. It'd be amazing. This is the god of the world, is Fat Chocobo.
The final boss. But yeah, so I'm not blown away by the music, but it's not terrible. It's not like
No,
it's not offensive, bad, or anything like that. It's just I'm just not as blown away by it as other people seem
it's
to be.
it's just when you're fighting these godly enemies, right? And the last one was 15, where you fought gods, and you had these big, epic orchestral, two steps from hell sort of music. I just was a little bit like I wouldn't mind it. It's really good. It's really good music, but just when it gets that ballroom point, it's a little bit like I'm listening to Beethoven or something. It's like it's really good, but it's not fighting a god really good.
Sure. Yeah, I take it for us. It's a difference opinion with
Yeah,
everyone else who seems to really, really love it. And
Good.
if you do,
I'm glad.
great.
glad to do it.
What is your favorite thing about the game so far?
For me,
I-
it was I think some of the cutscenes in particular, like from the demo, the moment that made me go cool was when Shiva is taking on Titan.
And Titan punches the ice.
Well, just that moment where she just like is doing that like kind of hand gesturing, like and all the ice is just going like that shit, and as well as the catapults flying into like the way that was directed and stuff like that. That was just that was really cool, and I'm kind of playing it to see more of that. There is another moment that's kind of similar-ish to that, but I would have liked to have seen more. I think those types of cutscenes are very few and far between, but they're cool. Those are my favorite moments.
Yeah. Eric?
Okay. I am not able to mention what is so far my favorite moment of the
No,
game.
not moment. What's your favorite thing about the game?
Well, it kind of involves my favorite thing about the game. So again, I cannot mention that.
Is
But
it
another
is
thing,
it cutscenes? Is
It's a
it
cutscene,
story? Is
gameplay,
it
music.
like
it's a
without-
particular character. I can't say the character because be a
Oh,
spoiler.
there is a character. Is your favorite part of the game?
Yes, yes. So, but another thing I could talk about
Is it Gav?
is the
I love Gav.
is the politics. The politics. I do like the politics side of it.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite thing, but it is something that I really like, and I want to mention that because I do like it.
I love the
And
story.
the world building actually.
Yeah, the world building is great. It makes me want every time I play the game, it's story time, and for me, like that's kind of what I enjoy about Final Fantasy anyway. I want to get swept off into a story that I remember playing Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy X when I was younger, and feeling like I must be near the end now. This must be the end of the story, and it's like, boom, no, you've only scraped the surface of the story. This is where the story really starts. There's loads of points like that in this game, and the last few Final Fantasies have been like clearable in 25 hours and things like that. This one, not a fucking hope. So I'm loving that. I'm loving the story. I'm loving the characters. I'm loving how gritty this is. And yes, for a Final Fantasy, but also just for a game. You know, like we were able to talk about the demo. You know, golf clubbed at the beginning, you know, send me on my revenge quest. Hello, Last of Us. Let's go. It's gritty anyway. It's not just gritty for a Final Fantasy. It's gritty anyway. There's so much bad language. There's so much blood, not just in cutscenes, also in scenery, like finding blood on the ground and stuff. I love the graphics. I think the graphics are gorgeous. The overall art design. There's so many screenshots I've taken of like views that I've seen where I'm like, that is fucking something out of Tolkien. It's fucking beautiful. So all of that is the stuff that I love about the game. I love putting it on to go, take me out of this world and take me into this world, and I want to see what happens next. And there's so many arcs that are so fucking interesting, and I just wish you had a party and that those people were on your party so that you feel even closer to those stories. Because like, and I won't go into it, but for example, there's a character called Dion, and Dion has one of the coolest arcs ever. I think it's amazing, and I'm like, that's such a TV show shit going on there. I think actually, I could be wrong, but because I haven't watched it, I have a funny feeling his whole arc and the stuff going on around him is where people are like, this is Game of Thrones. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, it's
also
Clive.
And Clive. Clive is Jon Snow.
Jon Snow.
He's got his hound, right?
His daddy dies early.
Yeah, all that stuff. The Red Wedding was kind of the beginning or something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
I love the character of Hugo Kupka, who at first I thought I wasn't going to like, and then I really liked. I like Benedicta. I love Sid, as I've said. You know, the only character I'm not digging is...
Torgal.
Hey! You shut the fuck up. He's a good boy. You leave Torgal alone. What did he do to you? Torgal's awesome.
I actually don't like Torgal.
Yeah, I could do without the character, the whole dog, to be honest.
Oh no! Keep the dog.
No.
Yeah, keep the dog. But I just
Dog's
changed
a good
his name.
boy. Dog's a good boy.
I think that name should have been a reference to something from one of the previous Final Fantasy games.
Fenrir.
That would have been cool.
That would have been cool. Yeah.
But yeah, okay, it's a weird name for a dog, but
Yeah.
he's a good boy. No, the only character I like them in writing, I don't like them in execution. Jill. What?
Jill. Oh,
I'm not digging Jill at all. And normally, like, Final Fantasy has some of the coolest like female video game characters ever.
I like Jill.
I'm
I like
not
her so
digging
far.
Jill. I think
she's in
I
my
would've-
favorite cutscene so far.
She's in some great cutscenes. No, don't get me wrong, her story is awesome. I don't know if it's the way she's being directed or what. I think I would have preferred so what's her name? Is it something like Charlotte McBurney or something like that? Or the one from A Plague Tale plays Jill as a kid in the beginning
Oh, right.
of the game.
Yeah, okay.
I think I would have preferred her to play her the whole way through.
That's actually another game, actually, that this reminds me a hell of a lot of.
Plague Tale. Well, yeah, I suppose.
Well, interestingly enough,
yeah, Hugo is.
Is it? Yeah, I thought
Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
Amicia.
I was like, oh my god, this is a Plague Tale.
Yeah, because you have this kid with all this power who's also really sick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Both games, like, oh, okay, fair
Yeah.
enough.
I was listening to there's so much interesting stuff though in like the beginning and in the imagery of the, because I remember when when you first get your Final Fantasy title and you first get to see the artwork,
Yeah.
and at first you're like, I don't know about it, I don't know about that, and then it's when you see it in context you go, yeah, okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And with 16, I was listening to the Resonant Arc, so what's called State of the Arc podcast, and they were like breaking down. They go so deep into everything, and they're breaking down just the imagery of the Phoenix and Ifrit fight at the start of the game, and how like Ifrit represents the demon Satan, and the Phoenix, the symbol of rebirth,
Sure.
represents the Christ figure, the salvation. Joshua being like derived from the Hebrew name Yoshia or something like that, and its relation to the Jesus Christ figure and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, yeah, I suppose there's a lot there. And even just the whole thing of like Prometheus giving fire to the gods, and how fire is such an important symbol. It represents both destruction and life. And I was like, that's really fucking cool.
I'll have what you're having.
That's pretty fucking cool, man. I like what you're talking.
But I was just more reminded of like, because I think Ifrit looks a lot like Godzilla.
Yeah, I just gotta say.
So I was like so it's
those
Godzilla
fights-
versus Mothma, probably.
those
Right,
fights.
just full on kaiju fight, right?
Yeah, those fights absolutely. I was just like, I'm playing a Godzilla game right now.
Yeah, okay, fair. I mean, yes, giant kaiju fights, basically.
Yeah. Sorry to take a dump there on your religious.
No, not at
philosophy,
all. I just,
just
but-
kaiju fights are cooler.
no, but I do think there is something in the like. There's a lot going on in the writing, I think, and I do think that certain symbols are on purpose. Like, I don't think that at any point in the game they're going to explicitly say that, but I do think that when they're deciding what way to structure the story, like why is it that it's Ifrit versus Phoenix, like, right? Why wasn't it Bahamut, or why wasn't it another one? I think there's a purpose as to why they look at that, and the symbology of the two brothers being the brothers of fire, one of destruction, one of rebirth, and like there's a reason for that.
And it's interesting actually bringing up the kind of Hebrew mythology and stuff, because I think later on there's a painting on a wall actually, and I remember looking at this painting during a cutscene and being like, that is some sick ass cool Renaissance painting, because it looks like that kind of image of the clouds and the angels and stuff, but it's done in the context of this world, so it has a different creatures, not angels, different creatures. That's a very cool thing. So I suppose, maybe actually they're taken from Hebrew.
Oh well, look, they take from all sorts of mythologies, right? And like, even I think the Ifrit name comes from a jinn of
called
Arabic Ifrit, right?
Ifrit, E-E-F or E-T, I think that's spelled.
Is a type of jinn or something in Arabic mythology, I think. So, like, or even like Shiva is obviously taken from the Hindu myth of Shiva the Destroyer, and like all the big summons come originally, they're named after different mythological beings and stuff. So there's obviously symbology throughout. But yeah, I think, look, we've discussed as much of the game maybe that we can discuss without going into the specifics of the story, which I feel is what everyone's really going to be talking about with this game, because I
Well,
think
that's
the
why
high praise,
because you were asking like what we talk about, right? And I said let's just touch on this purely from, well, I was kind of coming out more from a technical standpoint.
sure,
Because the reviews that I'm seeing, no one is talking about the story. Like they glance over slightly.
I'm shocked. Is it because they can't?
No. Who doesn't? Who doesn't mention the story? Like, it's like
Well,
they
I
do
don't know if people
mention
are being
it.
respectful though, because strangely enough, I haven't come across any spoilers, and normally you have to dodge that shit.
No, I know. Like, most times they can talk about the story in a non-spoilery fashion, and they do. They kind of do. But when I talk about like the pros and cons of a game or the highlights of it, right?
Sure.
What they're talking about is the music, the combat, the graphics, they're talking about it from a technical standpoint, and I'm not seeing it. And my biggest drive to get through this game is to see where these high 90s are coming from. Because I'm just not, like, from a technical standpoint, I'm sure the story is great. Like, generally, I pick the worst Final Fantasy and the story is going to be enjoyable, I think. You know, like, even Dirge of Cerberus had a quite engaging story.
Adam, you are so wrong.
The story was fine.
The
gameplay was
Dirge of Cerberus is fucking awful.
So good, Chris. With the power of friendship, we will defeat a mega weapon. It's so
That's
good,
what
Chris.
happens in the story.
I know.
What, and that
I was
doesn't
there.
happen in
cleared
Final
it.
Fantasy VII?
I'm not saying it. I'm saying that's not good. That is not a good. That's not good storytelling.
But that happens in 7, basically.
What, the power of friendship.
Yeah.
Well, kind of, actually. It's because it's all the souls of the planet gaining friendship.
It happens in the real way that the power of friendship happens, where friends actually genuinely help each other overcome their inner demons and stuff. Not in the go, and it creates an actual laser beam that goes through Vincent and into Omega Weapon.
Yeah,
like,
that is what happens. Yeah.
Shocking.
It's so good, Chris.
And even the voice acting throughout that game is dreadful.
It's amazing.
It's fucking dreadful.
Best thing ever.
Sorry. So I can't. I can only follow you so far, Adam. I can't go with you on that one. No way.
Okay.
But I hear what you're saying. You have no doubts the story is
Good.
a highlight.
Yeah.
It's the other thing.
It's getting me there.
I have a feeling that if the reason you're playing is, as you're saying, to get to that point of from just the other aspects of the game, like, will you finally see that, oh, this is what you're talking about? I don't think that's going to happen for you then.
Sadness.
I could be wrong, but I think you have a fair idea of what the game is now. It's only that you get more options later. You know? So it's like, you either like the combat or you don't really. Well, do try taking off those things though, to see
I'll
is
see
that
if
more
that
engaging?
helps fix it. Very strange, actually, because like I the way it read to me was just here's a combo. It's like, cool, yeah, get a combo.
Oh right, no, yeah, that's not. Yeah, that's not it is at all.
It's just literally press square and Clive will do everything.
Yeah, I think during there was a stage presentation where Yoshi P was trying to show off, and it was part of it was they wanted to go the action route to attract new gamers who say they don't like Final Fantasy because it's all turn based.
Okay.
And then they were also worried though about losing fans who maybe are like, I only like turn based, I don't like action games. So they're like, right, well, let's give a few options that you can customize till you find the healthy balance that works for you. Now, it's an experiment. Whether the experiment pays off or not is, down to each gamer, really. But so he did the combat and he was like very fast, hands-on with it first. And that was without the rings to show you what the game could be like. And then he put on a few of the rings to show gamers how easy the game could be for anyone who feels overwhelmed by that. And he with one hand was just pushing the square button constantly because he had the ring that would instantly dodge, and then the ring that if you just push square, he'll do combos on his own.
Appease exactly?
That's to appease anyone who maybe, has difficulty playing games full stop.
No, but like in relation to keeping the new gamers and the old gamers happy.
Right, I think that is aimed at the old gamers who maybe aren't up for fast-paced action but would want a menu-based system that's like you just have to concentrate on pushing one button. But to me, I'm like, I would like the menu though.
Yeah,
because the menu's not there.
The strategy is
like,
missing.
yes, we're pressing one button, but it's pressing one button to do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So that would be my question for you then. All right, so, I think from a story perspective, you'll probably get huge enjoyment out of it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of this game as an RPG?
I don't think it's a very good RPG.
I'm so tempted to quote Uncharted 2 right now.
What's the
What's the quote?
He literally just goes, RPG, and someone fires RPG at him.
I see.
Very good, Eric.
Thank you.
What a deep cut.
I think
Remember that from Uncharted 2?
I
When someone fired an
Or how about this one?
RPG.
RPG?
yeah. My favorite quote from the Uncharted series. RPG. That's how they should have opened the game. They open with a quote.
Or
RPG.
Nathan Drake.
Nathan Drake. I think this is an action game with very minor RPG elements. But I don't think it's an RPG.
I think compared to someone, because I was actually early on playing this game because again we mentioned it, the kind of it being a bit like The Witcher. So when I was first playing it, and I was first using the gameplay mechanics, I was like, I actually kind of wish it had Witcher's gameplay. In that, because in The Witcher, you hold a button and you get access to all his spells. So it's like, well, then that way you hold that button, you choose a spell, and then you just quick tap square or triangle or whatever, and you cast fire or you cast stone or water or whatever it is. And then on top of that, the parry system in this game is really, 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 really awkward, like kind of non-existent. It happens sometimes where he parries.
Yeah, you can. You press square basically.
If you hit directly on the attack or something like that.
Yeah,
but there's no like indicator as to like now is when you parry.
But in The Witcher 3, it is press this button, press the block button just before they hit you, so you know, okay, press, and then you are timing it, and it is this sort of like dance. You're waiting for the enemy to hit it go, and then you parry them, and then you start slicing them up like in Assassin's Creed or something. And there's also rolling, and there is running and sprinting, and I do think that would have been a slightly better system for it, because there's a tactic to it, but it's also, it can be quite a fast-paced action, like what if they're trying to attract the newcomers.
Yeah, I think it's also probably missing like a good skill tree. To like, now the sphere grid I thought was maybe a little overcomplicated, but that kind of thing, or even in the likes of God of War, Horizon, or even Arkham games, the way you choose what, I know there is a thing where you can choose, but honestly I have barely even touched that.
Yeah, and you won't for a while really, and then you end up saving up your skill points really to buy that one that you really want to use, and that you're going to use all the time, and maybe then put an item on yourself that will customize the cooldown on that ability so that you can use that ability way more often. I think like the later you get into the game, the more RPG it becomes.
Okay. Because
you start doing things for the purpose of, for example, I went out of my way to hunt certain creatures so that I could get certain items to craft a certain weapon.
Okay, cool.
That I didn't have to do.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of neat.
Do you know, and that's very much an RPG thing, but it came so late into the game to do that, right? And you don't have to do that at all. Yeah, I think the RPG aspect of this game is very, very light. And yeah, that could be a huge negative for people who want to go into a deep RPG game. It depends on really what you want out of this. Like I am so in it for the story, and I'm not even ashamed of that. Like that's absolutely what I am playing for.
Yeah.
And I find the gameplay fine. I don't love the gameplay.
A means to an end.
Yeah, definitely. I've played way worse, but I have played so much better.
Yeah, it's definitely more engaging than, let's say, Heavy Rain.
Yeah. And well, that's the thing. I think, just in case people are like, you fucking hate this game, like, I put Heavy Rain up there as like at one point one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah.
And at no point did I enjoy the gameplay. Not that I didn't enjoy it, but it's like there's not much fucking to it.
Yeah,
it was just the way the story is crafted.
You are just walking up those stairs to get that next cutscene or that next.
I just want to see what happens next. I want to know who the origami killer is. I want to unravel the mystery.
I do think
16 for the same reason.
I do think this does have better gameplay than 12 and 13, even though
I would agree with that.
Even though 12 and 13 had the menu system and the choice based thing, but
I find it more engaging than those two entries.
Yeah, because I know 12 was this weird system where you had like a laser beam going from yourself, locking onto a target, and you're kind of going around in circles. That was a bit lame. And then 13 was like 10, but then trying to make it more fluid and action packed. So you'd be attacking and you're doing spins, and then you're like over them. But then there was this weird diversity system, which is not an old wooden ship used during the American Civil War. And that was very weird.
Or was that the paradigm shift, I think it was called, or something like that? And you would queue up
paradigm shift, and one of the options was diversity.
You would queue up the attacks you want the character to do and when you want them to take an item or something like that.
Oh yeah,
it was weird.
I just remember I couldn't get into it at all. I really wanted to. I think very excited.
You know, because the conversation is like, you know, I wonder if there's high praise due to the backlash, because there was backlash before this game came out, right?
Sure.
Leading up to this, which I think
was there?
It's not
in various different categories.
Yeah, not overly warranted. I think it's like at least you could just give it a chance, you know, before you start judging it. But I think just that conversation around, like, you know, these things, like the points that I was bringing up here, like whether or not it's a good RPG,
right?
On a
purely objective basis.
And I think it's probably because when you like a game with a title of Final Fantasy, unfortunately that carries a lot of weight with it. It carries a lot of connotations, and it's like, at the end of the day, is it a good Final Fantasy game, or just even a good game at the end of the day? I think that's probably why there's this kind of divide amongst. Well, I remember
when me and Eric were talking about just the demo, I said I think this game is going to be divisive, and for various different reasons, whether it was on the gameplay, whether it was on the story. I felt as well people would not like
the 18
tone. The tone, yeah. There is a community of Final Fantasy fans that are very much into the cutesier aspect of Final Fantasy as a series, and this does not have.
Yeah, I find
fuck all of that.
Yeah, I find like if we just look, you know, the first question you had was what do we think of Clive, right? And I know this is kind of, well, it's Final Fantasy, so the point has, like, I mean, it does actually matter, and that's down to character design, right? I actually think the character designs in this game are okay, but not great. And his hair. His hair, one, does not suit his character or this whole gritty set. Like, I think Sid is just, he's fucking bang on. Sid is amazing. He suits his character, he suits this world. Yeah. But Clive is the only one that still has that anime hairdo, where the rest of them don't.
Yeah. Sid, depending on how Sid Highwind is brought to life in 7 Rebirth,
yeah,
this could be the best Sid in all of Final Fantasy.
Could be.
This Sid is just excellent.
But I do think, like, one of my issues with the character design in this game is their silhouettes. I don't think any of them has an iconic silhouette.
Everyone looks like they could be an NPC.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you meet along the way.
Which is probably why Jill kind of stands out to me a little bit. I think she's the only one that kind of has some level of interest.
Interesting. I don't. Where, like, I'm looking at, I think Benedicta looks like a designed character. I think she looks like a really great character.
Yeah, but she belongs in Vampire Knight, man.
Yeah, whereas I think Jill's character design is pretty bland. I'm really disappointed in Jill as a character, like, because yeah, I mean, you just put the characters up there. Tifa, Yuna, you know.
I'm really liking a lot of the characters in this.
I love Gav. I actually had to Google.
Oh, the characters themselves are good, and the voice acting is brilliant. I was just talking purely on the.
Do you reckon
aesthetics.
when it gets to Game Awards time that we might see 1 or 2 people from here in the best performance category at least nominated?
Ask me that when the game is cleared.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have more clarity then, but I feel like so far someone could.
Probably, actually. I'm trying to think. Yeah.
Torgal.
could feel that being a Torgal.
Yeah, absolutely Torgal. What an iconic design, Torgal. Like,
You know what? Sid'll probably be nominated, wouldn't he?
I mean, if and I would hope.
Fun fact.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sid probably will.
I know who he is. I can't remember his name.
Oh,
I do know who he is.
Ralph Ineson or Innocent or something like that. I think it's.
Yeah. Because the minute I heard him, I was like, I know who that is.
Right, yeah. Well, to be honest, I actually can't wait to finish this game because I want to know what the ending is, and then I want to go listen to actual like full detailed spoilers.
Yeah, see what everyone else is saying.
But I'd love to hear what people think about certain moments.
Right.
Because to me, the most interesting part of the game are those moments that you can't really talk about.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's the same as like if you talk to someone about Final Fantasy X, yeah, you might spend a little bit of time on what is a great combat system. You might spend a little bit of time on that, but really, you're going to talk about the story.
Yeah.
Same with 7, actually. Like, yeah, you'll spend a bit of like the materia system is fantastic and all, but the story. You're going to talk about what about that moment? Remember that moment? Do you know when the plate fell and when it's always the story. Is the talking point of
but there
Final
are
Fantasy.
also like I remember even in my youths, parts of the conversations we were having around 7 and 10 specifically was also loadout. Loadout is very, very important when it comes to like
tactic.
Yeah,
right?
the conversation you're having, and like what characters you chose for your party, and what did you give them? How did you get that particular weapon? All that kind of stuff. I don't know if 16 is going to offer that level of conversation.
Well, I get his meaning there. How did you beat Unalesca? Oh, did you know that if you do this, you can? You know, did you know if you throw 2 Phoenix Downs on the big ghost dragon, it'll die instantly?
There might be elements of that in here. Sure,
maybe there is,
but I don't know. It is definitely not in a very in-depth system.
I do wish I could change again going back to that kind of idea where I forget the characters are with me because I can't command them. I don't unlock new abilities for them. I don't change their loadout or anything. That it reminds me a little bit of Mass Effect Andromeda. I have teammates, but I don't do anything with them, so I don't really care.
I don't feel like I have teammates.
Yeah. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, fair. Okay, any final words then? We've actually talked about this game way longer than I thought we could in a non-spoiler fashion, but I think it's
didn't even get started.
Interesting conversation. Way longer than I thought we were going to talk about it when I checked the time. But any final words on Final Fantasy 16 for now until we park this, and I'm sure we will be revisiting this game.
I think maybe I'll just hold on to anything else I have to say for any other conversations I'll have, because I still have quite a bit in terms of the technical aspects of it and how it utilizes the PS5 console.
Just and it would just start a whole other
email
conversation. Yeah, fair enough. Eric, any final thoughts?
No, all my other thoughts are spoiler related. So
yes, I have found it hard not to talk about spoilers.
We didn't even get onto the how it utilizes the SSD.
I have found it really hard not to talk spoilers. So we're gonna leave it there for now. I can't wait to talk about spoilers for this game down the line, but we'd love to hear from you guys.
Could you imagine if I played 50 hours?
yeah. Destroy us in the comments. If you watch this on YouTube, jump down in the comments, share your thoughts on any of the points that we brought up, if you agree or disagree on anything that we brought up. Or if you have your own takes that we didn't bring up about what you think about the game, please do let us know. And if you enjoyed this discussion, when it gives a thumbs up, hit subscribe, ring the notification bell for all future content, including when we eventually, in some capacity, get to talk spoilers for Final Fantasy XVI. And to those of you listeners on audio platforms, you can also touch base on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Brothers Take, again, to give your take on Final Fantasy XVI so far. Do us a favor, don't spoil it on us, but do get in touch with us. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We'll be back to talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It was a long episode for a long-ass game.